I don't have the sets and reps that they do, so I've got some prepared remarks, and then I'll take some questions. I will say a few weeks ago, Jim called me and he said, "Hey, Mike, I'm doing this conference, and Dan Driscoll unfortunately can't make it." And I said, "Jim, I got it. I'll be there." And he said, "No, I was calling you for ideas, but now that you've made it awkward, like, I'd love to have you." Before I came in, a lot of people on the Hill and out in industry, I talked to hundreds of people before coming into this job, and a lot of them said, "Hey, you have to view the Army as a business." And as I walked through that with other people and I thought about it, it's very difficult because there are just aspects of the government that you can't treat as a business. However, when you go back to sort of first principles, that's where I said, okay, how do I treat this the way that an executive in a business would? So our product is combat-ready formations. Our customers are the combatant commands and the joint force. And our partners are industry. And then every business has a board of directors. And that, for us, is Congress. It's the two gentlemen that were just here and many others up on the Hill. So I'll be upfront, as I am with them, about the direction that the Army's going. I'll start with what our soldiers are facing today. It's not a theoretical first island chain exercise. It's not a think tank product that ignores realities. It is truly the unforgiving global struggle for influence, interests, stability, and if we ignore it, I think that we are mortgaging the next generation. The Army's response to challenges like what's happening over the last couple of weeks has been, I believe, very decisive. It's a kinetic, data-rich environment. We all see that, we know it, and it's in which our larger transformation of the Army is being forged. It's taking place in what I would argue is the decisive decade. The Joint Force is dealing with the reality of ongoing operations, but it also simultaneously has to train and equip to counter the emerging global threat of the 2020s. Multi-domain dominance is a necessity. Seabed to space, cyber to information, it's all underpinned by land dominance. The ability to seize, hold, and protect key terrain. That's ports, airfields, lines of communication. We're working alongside allies and partners to deter, when needed, defend, and ultimately to drive kinetic conflict into what I believe is channelized air and maritime environments where the full weight of our Navy and our Air Force can be brought to bear. America's only successful in deterrence and combat with a completely integrated joint force. It can dominate in every domain. So with that responsibility, the Army's continuing to become data-driven, and our forthcoming budget that will go over to Congress is a reflection of that. Our approach is anchored in the NDS core tenets: integrated deterrence, campaigning, and a combat credible force. And we have to be clear about the pacing challenge that drives it. Our primary strategic competitor has the intent and increasingly the ability and the power to reshape the international order. The data is undeniable. They have the largest Navy by hull count, arsenal of over 2,000 conventional missiles that can contest access, and they have an industrial base that's rapidly gaining on ours in key sectors. And they talked about that a little bit earlier today. The strategic backdrop, it's not a talking point. It's precisely what shaped the priorities that go into the budget request. It's a request that focuses on funding the systems required for land dominance and to underpin the joint force with C2, precision fires, network, and communication. Our resourcing approach will prioritize and protect investments in, number one, precision fires, a robust modular missile and effector portfolio to engage at the scale and the ranges that are required globally, both offensively and defensively. The second is unmanned systems, aerial and ground, dominate the reconnaissance and strike fight and set one-sided conditions before our soldiers make contact. And the third is a network that is resilient, unified, and rooted in AI. Without that, we cede the speed and efficacy of decision-making to our adversaries. To fund it, our spending priorities will reflect a continued analysis of what we have to divest of. We're modernizing throughout the Army's kill web. We spent years to achieve a better kill chain, faster sensor-to-shooter operations. But going forward, we have to have an integrated network of kill chains, a web that becomes any sensor to any shooter. Every dollar that we're spending is strategically intended to build the Army of 2030. A sound budget strategy, though, has to have an acquisition system that can execute. Moving to portfolio executives, and all of you have seen this in our rollout of Army transformation. We brought requirements and acquisition closer, and we've empowered those leaders to make trade-offs across an entire portfolio. And you'll hear from two of them today, Joe Welsh and Frank Lozano. Our industry partners, to all of you, these changes can and should match your emerging business practices, commercial-first mindset, and reformed acquisition processes designed to lower the barrier of entry for your innovative solutions. By providing improved demand signal, our responsibility, our aim is to magnify Army investments through the parallel investments of private capital. I'm going to say it one more time because to me this is the most important thing that we're doing in acquisition reform. Commercial-first mindset, reformed acquisition processes designed to lower the barrier to entry for innovative solutions. Providing improved demand signal, we aim to magnify Army investments through the parallel investments of private capital. As a trade-off for improved demand signal, our expectation of industry is funding of production infrastructure, software development commercially, and the absorption of integration costs. As we ask industry to change, we have to address the long-term viability of our own organic industrial base. So a new environment requires new approaches for the OIB. It's been around since World War II. It means embracing and incentivizing public-private partnerships as a core strategy. There's collaboration happening at some of our OIB sites. Letterkenny is a good example. Essential air and missile defense systems, and that's a model that we can use for the future. It blends the unique skills of our depot workforce with the agility and the capital of industry. That's how we're going to build, sustain the Army of 2030 and build a resilient industrial base that's a shared responsibility with shared success. Even so, our systems aren't going to deliver their full combat value if they can't share data, be interoperable, and enable decisions at the right speed. We're validating and eliminating our choices through the process of continuous transformation. It's a real-world laboratory for innovation. This is more than just getting critical soldier feedback. It's measuring success with hard data. When we put a new robotic vehicle or autonomous system in a unit's hands, we're evaluating it against key metrics. Did it reduce sensor-to-shooter timelines? If so, by how many minutes? Did it decrease the cognitive load on a company commander? We measure this through controller inputs, decision speed under stress in training environments. Did it lower the logistical demand? We track fuel, ammunition, maintenance requests per day, per system. Most importantly, did it improve loss exchange ratio when we conduct our simulations and our field experiments? The data flows directly into our requirements and budget process, ensuring our investments are based on demonstrated capability. I was out at Fort Carson last week. I was able to see this in person, where 4th ID is operating or conducting Operation Ivy Sting, a series of exercises. We have multiple vendors on the ground with soldiers collecting feedback, making changes in a matter of not days, hours. Next Gen C2, which is our laboratory there at Fort Carson and out in Hawaii, it'll eventually replace 200 standalone systems, overly prescriptive C2 and network systems. Next Gen C2 hasn't fully matured or expanded. So it's not closed out to industry. It requires 2 lines of effort going forward. More reps in the hands of soldiers and more industry products that are ready to integrate into it. Again, viewed as a business, the Army's product is our combat-ready formations, our customers are combatant commands in the Joint Force, our partners in industry, and our board is Congress. So to our board, we ask you to support the hard choices that the Army has to make, both in what we're funding and divesting, to build what the nation requires. To effectively build it, consistent funding is just as critical as the level of funding. In an era of continuing resolutions, paired with today's innovation cycle and the speed of it, the ability to generate new starts and production rate increases isn't just critical to us outpacing adversaries, but also to the health and the vibrancy of the defense industrial base and the emerging technology companies that make up a large portion of it. So our commitment to you is an Army that's lethal, adaptable, and resilient. And I truly believe this. As the foundation of the Joint Force, it's our responsibility to provide a combat-credible land dominance asset that can be used in not only situations like today, but going forward in the Pacific and every theater going on. So I'll end there. I appreciate the opportunity to make some remarks, and I'm happy to take questions. Steve.
Thanks, Mr. Secretary. As the mics are moving out to the general crowd, you know, in the 2026 budget today, there were program kills such as JTL, the Joint Light Tactical Vehicle, the M10 Booker. Clearly, there were decisions based on that. What would you say to industry as they go into future years about the speed of fielding their programs and the things they need to avoid in order to not become on the list of the 2027 program kills?
So there's a couple questions in there, and I'll use the M10 Booker, I think, as an example. This was solely an Army-induced problem because the original requirement kept getting changed over and over until it got to the point where it was too heavy and it was too wide for the job that the Army originally envisioned. We finally made the hard decision to kill that, and at the same time to say we have 106,000 Humvees. We don't need to buy any more. We need to go to what's lighter, more agile, can be transported easier, and is a commercial first mindset so that parts and systems on an infantry squad vehicle can be purchased on the market, and we don't have long lead times. Those are examples of, like, one, the mistake that the Army made, or a series of mistakes with a program that we can't repeat in the future. So we're taking those steps to ensure that as we develop new systems, we learn from programs like the M10 Booker. And candidly, over the past 25, 30 years, a whole series of canceled programs. And then when I talk about divesting legacy equipment, the Humvee and the JLTV are it. We have, now they served an incredible purpose for a long period of time, but we have to move to what the requirements are for the Army. Now when it comes to industry, whether it's hardware or software, the recommendation that I would make is come to the Army with, here's the system that we have started to develop, and here's how it fits into the Army ecosystem. From a hardware standpoint, here's how it's part of a combined arms Army, and it is part of the kill chain and the kill web that the Army has. It's not a standalone system. When it comes to software, we have written to the APIs with the SDKs that we need to integrate into the software ecosystem that you're building at Fort Carson and Hawaii. So those are the two biggest things that I can tell you is show the ecosystem of how your product fits into it, and then do the integration work on the front end.
Daily. Last Friday, we saw a $20 billion enterprise agreement awarded to Anduril. Is this a model that the Army wants to now proliferate more with companies in order to, grow the speed at which you can acquire their commercial tech? Should we expect to see that proliferated more? And do you see it specifically as a model to help bring in or work with new defense entrants? Thank you.
Yeah, great question, Matt. Thank you. So enterprise license agreements, we've seen, I think, maybe half a dozen that have been signed over the past several months from the Army for software. And so essentially what we're doing with that is saying we're going to centralize the contract to software companies so that there's one price that the Army pays. And we went from, in some cases, hundreds of independent contracts with one software company down to one. And what it allows now is decentralized acquisition of commercial developed software. And so units now and commands have more flexibility, and they have a contract vehicle at a set price that they can go forward and exercise if it fits into what they're doing. To answer the second part of your question, yes, I see ELAs as a way for emerging software companies to come to the table with the Army, negotiate a price that will be advantageous for the company because of the work that they've done to develop the software on their own capital and to integrate that software and then go out and push for it throughout the Army with a vehicle at a set price. So we're centralizing some of the business functions, but decentralizing the execution of the acquisition of that software.
Mr. Secretary, while we're looking for another question in the audience, let's go to some of the experimentation that we've been doing. JIADF 04, as well as now both the Maneuver Center and the Aviation Center of Excellence have gone out and done unmanned system competitions and things. Do you see that as a way of rapidly integrating the kinds of technology that's emerging through open competitions at sites like that?
Yes. So historically, as all of us know, a new system, we've put requirements out to one
I'm
company.
sorry, sir. I turned it off. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I think it was. I think
is
I
that
was
me talking?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. My fault.
Man, I don't like my own voice.
It's all good, sir. We all work for somebody.
Yeah. It's all right. Is this me doing it?
Sir, I could listen to you all day, sir.
All right. I can just turn it off and shout, but I don't know.
There you go. Try this one, sir. I'm sorry, sir.
All right.
I can still hear him.
Are we? I'm not in stereo anymore, am I? So, here's what I would offer. Right, traditionally, I think it's still happening. Check, check.
You know what it is, sir? It's General Gould listening in on you, sir.
It's okay. Golden Dome strikes again. Yeah.
Yes, sir. All right. We should be good now.
Okay. Hey, thank you. So, go back to the question. It had to do with competition. So, traditionally, as we know, a lot of RDT&E money to one company that's been awarded a contract early on to develop capability. Where we want, the vector that we want is companies that are backed by capital that can get to a certain TRL level and bring multiple companies together to do fly-offs, to do other competitions, and then have the flexibility to say, we're not going to have one award, we're going to have multiple awards. And so I'll use the example of in our fires portfolio. Right, we may see containerized munitions that are being awarded to 2, 3, or even 4 companies all at once. And commanders have flexibility to say, I'm going to replace this with this because of range or payload or other capability. Now, they all have to meet certain gates in experimentation and as we continue on with the normal down select, the way that the Army has always done it and the way the Defense Department has always done it. But we're willing to award more than just one vendor the final package.
Hey, sir. Thanks for your comments, sir. Steve Mathias, Eagle NXT.
Steve,
Drone
good to see you.
dominance centers on thousands of drones being purchased by 2027. And at least from my perspective, there seems to be a little bit of a delay between intent and execution. What's the Army doing to get after purchasing small UAS as part of drone dominance? Thank you.
Yeah, Steve, good to see you. Thanks for the question. There's a number of different things with small drones. That has been probably the single most talked about defense issue over the past 2 years, really since we saw the emergence of small drones and FPV drones on the battlefield in Ukraine. There's a lot of things that we can learn from Ukraine, but I'll caution everyone that they are in positional warfare right now. It is not maneuver warfare, and small drones have taken over because they are in literal trench lines the way they are in World War I. And I think we have to take those lessons, understand them so that we can apply them to our force, but we also have to remember that it has to fit into a maneuver army that covers ground rapidly. And if we find ourselves in a position, our army in a position that the Ukrainians and Russians are in, then I think we have bigger national problems. But in that vein, the department has spent or is spending billions of dollars on Group 1 and 2 drones through efforts like the DOG, through drone dominance. In the Army, we've done a couple different things. One is we've hosted a number of competitions that we're rewarding when it comes to like platoon-sized small drones, FPV drones. But then one of the things that I'm most interested in is the innovation in the units themselves. 101st Airborne, 2nd ACR in Germany, 173rd in Italy, and many others are building their own Group 1 and 2 drones because once you get past the supply chain issue, it's not hard to build. Simple software, some goggles, and it's not exquisite. It's not what industry can do. Some of the companies in industry have far more exquisite things that are resilient to jamming, that have better sensors, that have autonomy built in, and those are important. But right now, what we have to do in the Army is get reps and sets by soldiers, not hundreds of them, thousands of them. And when they crash them, it's okay. They're disposable because they cost $750 from the 101st building it. It's building those reps and sets that will allow us to then figure out how these FPV drones augment our maneuver army and the doctrine that has to go into them that's baked in so that when we bring in the exquisite drones, which we're also pursuing at the same time, we're bringing it into a formation that inherently knows how to use it. And then you go to the next step, which is China owns 90% of the market, 90% of the drone market in the United States, and you just can't get critical components for small drones in the US. So our organic industrial base, under our advanced manufacturing portfolio, we're building things like brushless motors. And we have a marketplace that they're going on. So units can order from it, and ultimately, small companies can order from it, and then offer those products back to the Army and commercial industry and everywhere else.
Mr. Secretary, rather than turn on another mic and start backfeed, are you happy with the Army's readiness right now? And if not, what would you see changing in 26 and 27?
Okay, so the question is, am I happy with the Army's readiness right now? And then how does that affect 26, 27? I define readiness as what can the Army respond to tonight and this week with forces that are on call and forces that are in theater. The second part is what can we follow those on with during the next month by projecting force out of CONUS. And then what are we able to sustain for a year of combat? And so that's how everyone has different readiness metrics. Chris Donahue in Europe will have his readiness metrics. Xavier Brunson in Korea, General Clark in Hawaii. Everyone will have different metrics based on their specific situation. The Army as a whole, that's the way that I view it. To say that we're satisfied with our readiness rates, I think would be disingenuous. We have real problems with our major weapon systems, both aircraft and ground, and we have to address those things. And we're doing so through a number of different ways. And public-private partnerships in our organic industrial base is one of the most fundamentally different approaches that we can take so that in 26 and 27, we have OEMs alongside our workforces in the OIB turning vehicles and turning aircraft in a more rapid manner to get it back out to the force. That's all of our weapon systems. Then we have to think about magazine depth and the current situation, the effect on it. So all of that's putting pressure on, the current situation is absolutely putting pressure on our readiness from a magazine depth standpoint. So to answer your question succinctly, no, I am not. And I think across Army leadership, we all have to continue to pressure the units today to figure out what are the demand signals, or what are the demands that they have to increase their readiness, and then how do we respond as an Army.
Mr. Secretary, Paul Ostrowski, J.A. Green, good to see you, sir. Had a quick one for you. One of the key things that the Army's been doing really, really well is this concept called transformation and contact. Could you talk just a few minutes on that particular issue and any issues you have associated with, such as resourcing and the rest, that allows it to really proceed the way it's supposed to?
So, thanks, Paul. Good to see you. Paul probably knows more about acquisition than most of the room here, definitely more than me. So, let me think about your question for a second. So, transformation and contact was really started out of what we all know, all of us that saw the Army, a requirement being built over years, development, initial experimentation, and then prototyping happening over a period of years. And so by the time things were fielded to the Army, they were obsolete in many cases, or they got to soldiers and they got to units and they didn't fit, they didn't work. So the fundamental principle, the first principle behind it is get a product into the hands of soldiers today, knowing it's not perfect, knowing it's not ready, and not knowing if it's the right thing at all. And so transformation and contact at the brigade level is how it started. Really, we're turning that into continuous transformation where get these products out early to soldiers. And that doesn't mean that our labs aren't important. We have to do exquisite development and testing in our labs. But we have to put things in the hands of soldiers today, and then how do we capture that feedback in a very real time back into the program executives. So it's not only fielding it there and having industry embedded with the soldiers, but it's having that feedback right into the PAE and having the requirements owner and the acquisition executives side by side, which anyone that's been a part of acquisitions knows has been a gap that we've had to bridge. So putting them side by side and trying to innovate in real time. And probably one of the best examples of that is the M7, M8, and M250 rifle. So 20,000 hours in the hands of soldiers. And we have, I think, probably 50,000 of these manufactured and put out into the force, 6.8 millimeter. We've made significant changes to that rifle just based on what the soldiers have given us from the 101st, from the 75th Ranger Regiment, and we decided to go to a carbine, which in 8 months developed and produced a carbine rifle. That took us 25 years to do that with the M16. So continuous transformation is just pulling those modifications and adjustments in a much more rapid fashion and putting it into the end result.
So we've got maybe 30 seconds left. I know you have strong feelings about right to repair. And you mentioned the readiness issue. Did you want to close on that note? Because I know that's important to you.
Yeah, thank you. So right to repair is a very broad statement. We saw legislation that was proposed that was not included in the latest NDAA. We're working with Congress to get more refined on right to repair. And so to me, we have to be very narrow on what we're asking for. So how many repetitions, how many units, how many years before we have IP? And there's some IP that we don't want, commercial software and other things. We want companies to keep that because we want them to be responsible for the updates, the security patches and all that. And we want to be able to change things out as the environment demands. But for our weapon systems, we've got to have a comprehensive approach to how we pull in IP so that we can utilize our organic industrial base, so that our soldiers forward know how to fix things and can fix them without having to send an entire system back to the United States. So, yes, sir. Thanks. Thanks, Steve.